Hello, welcome to my channel. Today we dive into the top 10 luxury castles around the globe. Before we dive into today's topic, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for future updates. 10. Alhambra in Granada, Spain. The Alhambra sits high above the city of Granada as a symbol of Spain's rich history. Ibn al-Ahmar, the founder of the Nasrid dynasty, first commissioned the hilltop palace and fortress in 1238. As different leaders came to power, the Moorish complex grew to include three distinct areas: a quarter for the royal family, a military base, and a quarter for the court officials. During his reign, Charles I ordered the destruction of areas in the palace to build more Renaissance-style structures. However, guests can still see the original Moorish tilework and architecture in the restored Nasrid buildings throughout the complex. 9. Castillo San Felipe del Morro in San Juan, Puerto Rico. Construction for Castillo San Felipe del Morro, also known as El Morro, took nearly 250 years to complete. The Spanish began building the fort in 1539 at the very top of Old San Juan. The 6 levels of the fortress were strategically designed to give inhabitants an advantage over any enemy ships coming to the harbor. By the time it was completed in 1790, El Morro was already given the reputation of being unconquerable, winning numerous attacks, including one from Sir Francis Drake in 1595 and a 1625 invasion from the Dutch. The fort was never defeated. Today, the fort is considered a World Heritage Site, and the National Park Service established it as a museum. 8. Château de Chenonceau in Chenonceau, France. Surrounded by manicured formal gardens, Château de Chenonceau appears as though it's elegantly floating over the reflective Cher River. The original structure can be traced back to the 11th century, but it was Diane de Poitiers, the mistress of Henry II, who commissioned Philibert de Lorme to build the castle's hallmark feature, the arched bridge, in the 16th century. From one powerful woman to another, Catherine de' Medici made Chenonceau her favorite residence after the death of the king in 1559. There was never a night when the French queen wasn't dazzling guests within the castle walls with her grand gallery and impeccable hosting skills. It's even believed the first ever fireworks display in France was held on the grounds to celebrate the ascension of her son Francis II to the throne. The chateau suffered extreme damage during World War II after the occupation of German troops and the Allies bombed its chapel. In 1951, the Menier family tapped architect Bernard Voisin to return the gardens and structure to their majestic state. 7. Pellé's Castle in Sinaia, Romania. Taken by the enchanting Bucegi Mountains, King Carol I commissioned the construction of a neo-Renaissance-style castle in the quaint village of Sinaia during the 1860s. The royal summer house contains 160 rooms, all of which have a distinctive theme. For example, the theatre on the grounds asserts a storybook feeling with exquisite frescoes by Austrian artists Gustav Klimt and Franz von Matsch climbing the walls and ceiling. After years of serving as a royal residence, Pellé's castle eventually was abandoned when Romania fell under communist rule. The castle reopened as a public museum after the revolution in 1989. 6. Chapultepec Castle in Mexico City, Mexico. Mexico City's Chapultepec Castle is the only castle in North America to ever house actual sovereigns. Viceroy Bernardo de Galvez ordered the construction of the fortress in 1785 to serve as the home for the commander-in-chief of the Spanish colony, New Spain. Years after the Mexican War of Independence, the regal structure was repurposed as a military academy and later became the site of the Battle of Chapultepec during the Mexican-American War in 1847. Eventually, it would once again act as an official royal residence for Emperor Maximilian I and his wife, Empress Carlota. Maximilian helped devise the castle's current floor plan and neoclassical style, but his reign was cut short in 1867 when President Benito Juárez regained power. Today, the castle holds the National Museum of History, which educates locals about the country's cultures and history. 5. Qaitbay Fort in Alexandria, Egypt. Construction of this austere fortress on the Mediterranean Sea began in 1477 after Sultan al-Ashraf Qaitbay learned of Ottoman troops advancing toward Alexandria. The castle plans were cleverly laid out on the ruins of the fallen Pharos lighthouse, where workers could salvage pieces of the previous structure to build red granite columns in the mosque and entrance. Eventually, the Ottoman Empire captured Egypt, but the citadel still functioned as a military fort until the British bombardment of 1882. The imposing and stunning structure was left neglected on the harbour until the 20th century when the Egyptian Supreme Council of Antiquities stepped in to rebuild it to its original glory. Since the revolution of 1952, the citadel has functioned as a maritime museum, detailing the victories and losses of Egyptian naval troops. 4. Matsumoto Castle in Matsumoto, Japan. The origins of Matsumoto Castle date back to 1504, when the Ogasawara clan started to build a fort to fend off invaders. Only a few years after its completion, the military fortification was captured by the powerful warlord Takeda Shingen. As the castle switched hands throughout history, its design evolved into a tall three-towered structure with inky black walls and roofs that earned it the nickname the Crow Castle. Around 1872, the castle faced possible demolition as developers wanted to build newer buildings and housing complexes on the site. However, the residents of Matsumoto started a campaign to save the building, and eventually, the city government acquired it. Fast forward to today, Matsumoto Castle has officially been named a national treasure of Japan and one of the last standing examples of a daimyo castle. 3. Bojnice Castle in Bojnice, Slovakia. According to written records found at the Zobor Abbey, this Romanesque castle might have first been built as a wooden fort as early as 1113. Stone slowly began to replace the wood, and by the 16th century, the Gothic castle boasted Renaissance elements. While he might not have been the first owner of the fortress, King Matthias Corvinus of Hungary might have been one of the first to invest in its future. The ruler would often come to the small city to work on his decrees and dictate them under a linden tree because now bear his name. It seems construction never ceased, as owner after owner continued to renovate the exteriors or add rooms until the castle ultimately landed in the hands of Count Jean Paulfi. Taken by the romantic castles of France's Loire Valley, the aristocrat sought to create his fairy tale castle filled with his impeccable collection of antiques, tapestries, and artwork. With its enchanting appearance, Bojnice Castle has become one of the most visited castles in Central Europe, with thousands of guests exploring its hallowed halls each year. 2. Fasil Gebi in Gondar, Ethiopia. Emperor Fasilides commanded the construction of the imposing fortress city in 1636 after he broke from tradition and founded the new capital city of Gondar. Previously, Ethiopian emperors would travel through the territories of the country, living off the food offered by locals and staying in tents. From its inception, Fasil Gebi stood as a symbol of change in Ethiopia. Situated on top of a high plateau, the castle complex consisted of living quarters for the royal family and a series of gardens, temples, libraries, and even a swimming pool. Each ruler after Fasilides continued to enlarge the medieval-style fortress. But it was Fasilides' grandson Emperor Iyasu the Great who filled the palace with the ivory sculptures and gem-encrusted ceilings often referenced in archival documents. Fasil Gebi saw much damage throughout the centuries because of an earthquake and attacks by foreign troops. After damage from British air raids during World War II and conflicts with Somalia and Sudan, the castle complex fell into disrepair for many years. Eventually, it made its way onto the UNESCO World Heritage List in 1979 and was restored to the prominent attraction it is today. 1. Nakhal Fort in Nakhal, Oman. Upon first glance at the magnificent fortress above Oman's Al Batina Plain, you might notice its rather irregular shape. The original structure of Nakhal Fort, which predates the Islamic era, was built around a large boulder at the foot of Mount Nakhal, causing it to look a bit imperfect. The fort was built as a way to protect nearby trade routes from any looters or attacks and grew to include a mosque, residential spaces, and reception halls. Not to be overlooked are the odder additions like the hidden nooks where soldiers would dump hot date juice on invaders. Most days the fort operates as a museum with historic artifacts, but if you happen to visit on a Friday, then you'll be greeted by friendly goats at the weekly market held within its walls. Let's wrap it up here about today's topic. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Before you go, don't forget to subscribe to my channel for a future update. See you next time. Thanks for watching.